What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to this episode of Blazers Uprise Live, powered by BetUS. Today, we're going to talk about a few different things in this solo stream. We're going to talk about Team USA winning gold behind a Curry flurry. We're going to talk about football coming up. Shout out to BetUS. They got some fun stuff over there on their website that we're going to look at. And then we're going to talk about, do the Blazers need to trade Jerami Grant? We've talked about it from other teams' point of view. I've been on the record saying the Lakers need to trade for Jerami Grant, even if that means overpaying for him by, conventional wisdom or whatever their beat writers say. I think the Lakers should have given up 2 first-round picks for Jerami Grant already, but the flip side of the coin is, do the Blazers need to trade him? So we're going to talk about that conversation. We're going to talk about some of the downsides of bringing Jerami Grant back, which, of course, play into, do the Blazers need to trade him or not? We're also going to talk about Scoot versus Sharpe, as there's an interesting article that's a 21 and under redraft on The Athletic that I'm going to go through and react to live. I have not seen it yet, but I'm curious because both Scoot and Sharpe are on it. I'm curious who they draft first. This is something we're going to do throughout August and September, is any interesting articles that pertain to your Portland Trail Blazers. Me and Eric are going to live react to, as it's a bit of fun. We did it last stream. We reacted to trade ideas. Today, I'm going to do it with this 21 and under redraft. And then we'll talk a little bit about the channel going forward. Not too much for the stream today. Eric's not here. He is out of town. I don't know where, but he's enjoying himself. I'm back from vacation. I just spent the weekend, Friday through today, down at Cape Lookout by Tillamook. Shout out to any of you if you know where that is. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend as well. I'm like slightly sunburnt, a bit more tan. So I'm just kind of getting back into the swing of things here after my vacation. Of course, I come back to a solo stream. But chat, hopefully you guys had a good weekend as well. Let me know in the live chat what you guys did and how your weekend went. David says, yeah, it looked like you touched grass, Tori. I touched sand. The sun touched me too much, man. I burn no matter what. I wore sunscreen too, which is an accomplishment, I don't put on sunscreen often enough, but I tried. And it's not too bad. It's still a little burnt, but should tan over, so I should be looking pretty tan here shortly. Unfortunately, I'll still get burnt if I spent any time out in sun. So, anyway. Shout out to Yasursky. He was in Pacific City this weekend, close to Tillamook. Yes, I haven't donned the Tillamook hat in a while, but we've been going down there for quite some time. Also, sorry, stream going live a little bit late. This was one of those nights where we had technical difficulties. Mic wasn't working for a while. I was panicking, thinking that I had no mic and there was no Eric. We're going to have to cancel the show. But here we are as we Treg, is that a word? On into August. I mean, this is just a slog right now as the Blazers still have Jerami Grant and Anthony Simons on the roster. Trek. There we go. See, man, I'm still coming back from vacation. Brain's still a little fried. Can't find the right words. But we trek on, or dredge. I'm not sure. Anyway. Let's talk about something good. At least if you were rooting for Team USA. I know a lot of you, or maybe not a lot of you, but some of you were rooting for Team USA's downfall, especially if you're maybe a Noah Lyles fan. But Team USA wins gold. They played France on Saturday, and it was a good game. It was one of those games where Team USA was in control pretty much the whole time, but it wasn't in the bag. Every time Team USA got a 10-point lead, France would cut it to 5. Every time Team USA would get up 12-13, France would then have a run cutting it to 7. It was just one of those back and forth games where France just kept on fighting, had the home crowd behind them there in Paris. You had Wembanyama, who had a terrific game. He tried to lead that team to a gold medal in front of his home crowd, but they could not get it done because Steph Curry went absolutely nuclear. nuclear. 4 straight threes to basically seal the deal, to seal the gold medal. Curry didn't have a gold medal. There was a clip of him after winning the 2022 NBA Finals when the Warriors beat the Celtics, and on the flight back home, Steph Curry was essentially saying, I gotta go get myself a gold medal. And he was not playing around. It was nice being on the right side of a Curry flurry for once as Blazer fans, rooting for his shots to actually go in for once. It reminded me of watching Dame in a way, just when he got hot and you just had a feeling that the ridiculous threes he's shooting are going to go in. He shot a step back to his right, which as a right-handed shooter is very tough. For his 4-3, threw a double team, just an absolutely insane shot, insane moment. And Team USA walks off with gold, and this was a bit of a last hurrah in the Olympics for some pretty big-name players. I mean, the 3 most notable, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. LeBron said he can't see himself playing in 2028. But then again, he also said he didn't see himself playing in 2024, but he was out there on the court and a big part of Team USA winning gold. So could LeBron play in 2028? It'll be in LA. Would Team USA even want him at that point? Who knows? He seems to defy aging, but he'll be what? 43 by then? I don't know. Maybe he's the last roster spot, doesn't play like Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton. Who knows? But it's the last hurrah, presumably, for him, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. That's kind of the previous generation now, which is wild to say. So it was cool to see them win gold together. It was cool to see them enjoy it. France is coming. Wembanyama had a quote after this game where he said he's figuring some things out and he's worried for his opponents the next couple of years. And he was asked, does that mean FIBA or NBA? And he said, everyone. Which is very ominous, and coming from other young players would maybe be seen as a little bit corny. But when it's coming from Victor Wembanyama, the only word I could use to describe it is scary. Because he's going to dominate the league for at least a decade, if he can stay healthy. Hopefully he can, of course. He's coming. And France is going to be legitimate with all the young talent that they're bringing into the NBA. Bilal Coulibaly got some run. He was only a rookie last year. He's going to be much better 4 years from now. Of course, they had the top 2 picks in this last draft with Alex Sarr and Zachary Risache. But then again, this last draft was so weak. Maybe those guys don't even make the team in 2028. Nolan Traore is coming up next in next year's draft. I think he'll be on that 2028 France team. I think he's going to be a freaking stud. I think he would have been the number 1 pick in this year's draft. France is coming. We'll see if they can get revenge on America's soil because, of course, the 2028 Olympics are in Los Angeles. It's cool to see the USA get it done, though. They still run the world. The world might be catching up. And part of them catching up in 2028 might be guys like Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant being gone. So, a lot of interesting debates on who's going to be on that 2028 team. I'm looking forward to it. Nate J. Dub says, Tori, your face is red AF. Yes, a little bit. I'm going to try and interact with chat a little bit more since we don't have Eric here. I always love being mid-monologue and seeing people say, where's Eric? Eric is vacationing. You can ask him. He's in chat. I don't know where he's at, but you can ask him where he went, and he might tell you. We got Matt saying, please give DeAndre Ayton an extension. Matt, I hate that. Eric went to Great Wolf Lodge. Anyway, Curry Flurry wins it all for Team USA. Shout out to them. Eric should be back on Thursday. I was thinking about doing this tonight, but I want to talk about what each player on the roster needs to improve the most on. I kind of want to do that with Eric instead of doing it solo. especially because we got a couple things to talk about today. Anyway, before we get into the meat of this episode, which is, of course, Jerami Grant. We've been talking about him like crazy, and we're going to basically talk about him from every single angle possible until we run out of narratives or topics to talk about Jerami Grant and that whole saga. But first, football is underway, at least preseason. And if you're a football fan like me, you're excited. I know preseason is kind of boring and you're just waiting for the real thing to start, but you can make preseason fun with BetUS, as they have you covered if you want to bet on the preseason. Now, that's maybe not something that I advise, but week 2 coming up, you can get in on the action with these lines. The Baltimore Ravens, I don't know how they did last week, but going into last week, they were 24-1 in their last 25 games. So if you want to throw some money down, maybe the Ravens are your go-to pick there. But of course, we're looking ahead to the regular season with the NFL, and you can already get week 1 game lines. Of course, you can get award specials down here. You can bet on passing leaders, receiving leaders, rushing leaders, touchdown leaders, all sorts of things over here on BetUS. You can bet on all sorts of stats, and it's fun, in my opinion, to bet at the start of the season and just see how that goes over an 18-week period of time, instead of maybe just betting on a game and you lose it real quick or you win it real quick. It's fun to be invested for an entire season, paying attention to the NFL. So if you're a football fan, or maybe you're trying to get into football and need something on the line to pique your interest, you can do so with BetUS, as they're offering you a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. And of course, if you're not into football, they have basketball, baseball, all sorts of sports over there on BetUS. The next 3 streams, we're going to be looking at Blazer-related lines. You can see them below the stream. And it's always fun to look at Blazer-related futures. I wish they had a Jerami Grant next team odds on their website, because it'd be fascinating to see the teams below the Lakers, because the Lakers would be number 1. Every other team below that, I mean, maybe the Kings would be number 2, but I'm not sure who Vegas and BetUS would like as the number 2 favorite behind the Lakers to land Jerami Grant. I think it would have to be the Kings. But chat, if it's not the Kings, who do you think it will be? Let me know in the live chat. That is the segue to Jerami Grant. Once again, thank you to BetUS. You can sign up for them with my link in the description box below. If you're watching this after, check out the pinned comment. Jerami Grant, do the Portland Trail Blazers need to trade Jerami Grant? We've talked about it from every angle in terms of the Kings should probably trade for him, because I don't think DeMar DeRozan is a big enough splash or a big enough difference maker to actually make them contenders. And no, I don't think they're contenders in the West. I would probably pick them as a first-round loser right now, although I don't even know if I want to put them in the playoffs. That's how deep the West is. So you got teams like the Kings, where Jerami Grant would, I think, take them to another level. The problem is he can't be their point of attack defender, although they did draft Devin Carter, who probably plays right away. Hopefully he can be what Davion Mitchell wasn't for him. So we've talked about that angle. We've, of course, talked about the Los Angeles Lakers ad nauseum. We've talked about how they can't continue to stand pat and expect a different result than they've seen the past couple of seasons. And we've talked about the whole saga with Rob Pelinka backing out of a deal that he initially said he'd do, including 2 first-round picks, yada, yada, yada. We, of course, have talked about it from the Blazers' end, but this conversation, I just want to fully explore all the kind of nuances to this from Portland's end. Okay? Now, the main thing with bringing Jerami Grant back is you're going to start him, you're going to play him. And we've talked about the rotational questions that come into play if Jerami Grant returns. We've talked about how You're probably starting Avdia at the 3 and Grant at the 4 if Grant comes back, which means you can only start 2 of Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson. Anthony Simons would start. So which one of Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe are you bringing off the bench? Now, I know on the rundown on the left, it says Scoot versus Sharpe. Like I said in the intro, that's about a 21 and under draft that the Athletic did, and I want to see who was drafted higher by the Athletic in that, redraft, whatever you want to call it, okay? That conversation is not who should start, because honestly, I don't know who should start. I don't know who should start out of Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson. I think both of them should start. In a rebuild, that's the Blazers' 2 prized young guards. Sharpe can play the 3, but if Sharpe starts and Scoot starts and we know Ant's going to start, and you got Jerami Grant back, he's going to start, then you have Dia comes off the bench, he's way too good to come off the bench. So, legitimate rotational starting question marks with Jerami Grant. Now, if somebody gets hurt, that problem's solved right away, right? And we saw Anthony Simons get hurt in game 1 last year. Like, the Blazers will probably run into injuries if that's the case, and one of those 5 guys will get hurt, unfortunately. I'm going to knock on wood because we're praying that doesn't happen, okay? We of course, don't want to deal with that. It would be amazing if the Blazers could actually have a healthy season. But ultimately, that problem could unfortunately solve itself. Still, I don't like going into a season where there's question marks about, man, do you start Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot Henderson? I would like to go into the season just saying, oh yeah, of course they're both going to start. And no, the Blazers are not bringing Anthony Simons off the bench for the 10% of people that still think that's a possibility or an option that this team would explore. Not going to happen. Okay? So that's issue number 1 with bringing Jerami Grant back, is minutes/starting roles, etc. And I know people will say, oh no, it's more important that you finish games. I think that's more in play for teams that are actually in games at the end of games, not your Portland Trail Blazers, who are predicted to finish last in the West. The end of games oftentimes is garbage time. So if you're not starting, but you're supposed to play the end of competitive games, but you're down 20, guess what? Those minutes are going to garbage time guys instead. So I don't really look at it like that for a team as bad as the Portland Trail Blazers. I look at it as the start of games are competitive because you're starting at 0-0 and you're playing against starting caliber players. I want that for Sharpe and Scoot, and I want those guys starting together. So that's reason number 1 to trade Jerami Grant. Okay? And I'm going to list all the reasons, and then we're going to come to the conclusion. Does that mean the Blazers need to trade him, or maybe how badly do the Blazers need to trade him? Point number 2 is, does having Jerami Grant and utilizing him the way that Chauncey Billups has utilized him, especially at times last year, hurt the development of young players on this team? And people love to talk about how veterans like Jerami Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, etc. are good veteran mentors for young players. I think Malcolm Brogdon is more of a mentor for our young players than Jerami Grant is. The only thing Jerami Grant could teach is maybe a in and out dribble pull up from the mid range. But do we really want Toumani Camara working on that specifically? Is he ever going to be capable of doing that? Toumani Camara is not a mid range shooter. I mean, what could Jerami Grant really be teaching Toumani Camara? I'm not sure. There's probably nuances of defense, but Kamara's already a better defender than Jerami Grant. It's not like Grant can teach him how to shoot. I don't really think Grant has a ton of value as a veteran mentor beyond just teaching guys how to be professionals on and off the court, I guess. When it comes to style of play, I've hated how ISO-heavy Jerami Grant is. And now, this isn't a Jerami Grant. This isn't his fault. It's probably some of his fault, but Chauncey Billups has hammered away with isolating Jerami Grant a ton the past couple of years. And there's even a quote last year, and I'm paraphrasing this because I don't remember the exact quote, but basically Chauncey saying that he told Jerami needs to shoot shots that he's uncomfortable with. Basically, Jerami needs to shoot the ball a ton because they need him to shoot a ton because their offense is abysmal. So Jerami would get super aggressive, have some impressive performances, but would get super aggressive trying to get shots off, basically at times playing like a complete black hole. But then, once again, he's not a passer. He's more of a third scorer on a good team to me, where he can catch the ball, spot up shoot, attack closeouts, and then at times can create his own off the dribble, especially if he has good matchups. That's how Jerami Grant should be utilized on a good team. On a bad team, he's like your number one scorer where you just give him the ball. If you're trying to win games, you just give him the ball and he just isolates and everybody stands around and watches. I don't think that is the best situation for young players trying to develop, especially young guards that need reps in NBA games with the ball in their hands, and or playing off of guys that will find them when they cut, hit them with kick out passes, etc. I don't think Jerami Grant's style of play really fits where this team is going, which I think should be a transition heavy team that gets out in runs and then is quick attacking in the half court. I don't view Scoot Henderson as like a breakdown, a guy with his dribble with a bunch of dribble moves. I view him as a guy that, like, he'll get the ball on the perimeter, you give him space, he'll shoot. He attacks off the dribble. If you back up too much, he'll shoot a step back three. We saw flashes of that last year. And then if he can turn the corner, he's going to turn the corner. But his decision making should be quick. Anthony Simons, of course, pounds the ball a lot, isolates a lot. Like, his decision making needs to be quicker. But I hope this team is building towards, we're going to get out and run, we're going to play super fast, and then in the half court, we're not going to waste time with 4 or 5 dribbles, isolation heavy basketball. We're going to move the ball, and when we catch it on the perimeter, we're going to attack, or we're going to run pick and roll. I don't think Jerami fits into that style of play, and I think that's the style of play the Blazers need to work towards. Ultimately, he probably doesn't make a huge difference in the trajectory of Scoot Henderson's and Shaedon Sharpe's career long term if he plays with them this season. But at some point, the organization needs to actually take steps towards establishing a style of play on the offensive end, especially with a young team. The sooner you build these habits, the better. And if Jerami Grant's back on this team and they're utilizing him like last year, I'm going to cringe every time he shoots a high post, mid-range, fadeaway with 10 on the shot clock. Now, the third reason that you could make in terms of the Blazers needing to trade Jerami Grant now is that his value may never be higher than it is right now. Now, value is a tricky thing because when it comes to trading a player for top dollar, part of it is how high is that player's value? And there's multiple things that pour into that: contract, age, how well the player's playing that given season if you're trading them at the deadline, etc. The other part of trading a player for top dollar is the market for him. Is there a lot of teams trying to get him? Can you create a bidding war and extract more out of one of those many teams? Or are you just stuck with a couple of teams that are maybe trying to pay cents on the dollar and you don't really have any other options? With Jerami Grant, it's tough to say what the market is because I'd just be purely speculating. We got the Los Angeles Lakers, who should be desperate, and I think the Lakers want him. The question is, will they want him bad enough to trade what the Blazers want, which is 2 first-round picks and then apparently Rui Hachimura as well? And are there any other teams that can get the Lakers to come over the top? Because I don't think any team's matching that. But is there teams that maybe if the Blazers decide, you know what, we want to start Avdija at the 4, Sharpe at the 3, so we want to move Grant, maybe we'll take this package from the Sacramento Kings because it's good enough. are there teams there that can actually meet the Blazers' asking price? And I know it's, the presumed opinion from a lot of people is, oh, the Blazers don't need to trade him and they don't want to trade him. Like, they're completely comfortable taking him into next season. I don't fully believe that's the case. I think those first two reasons play into the Blazers wanting to trade Grant, but just wanting to make sure they get top dollar for him. There's also another reason that I'm about to say. So at the end of the day, is there really a market out there for him? Could there be more of a market at next year's trade deadline? And could he continue his play and have a little bit more value at next year's trade deadline with a little less time left on his contract, and if a market materializes? But I don't think that's a shoo-in at all. And if his shooting takes a dip where, he shot 40% the past 2 seasons, that's a really good selling point for an athletic 6'8" power forward that can attack off the dribble, create his own shot. Oh yeah, he also shot 40% from 3 on volume on some difficult attempts on a bad team that didn't really set him up with good threes. That's a selling point that Joe Cronin can use right now when trying to sell Jerami Grant. If he's shooting 35% from the 3-point line next year, going up to the deadline, are you able to get teams to view him as the elite shooter that you could pitch him as right now? And I talked about market. Will other players become available that the Lakers like more, or like the price for more, where they might get a player that completely takes them out of the running for Jerami Grant? So that could be another reason to trade him. That one is a little bit more iffy. That one is a little bit harder to call right now. The fourth reason, and I think this is a stronger reason than the third reason, right? The third reason is a bit speculative. There's really no answer to it. This fourth reason, I think, is pretty clear right now. Capture the flag, which of course is our tanking motto for Cooper Flag. Now, Jerami Grant will help the Blazers win a couple to a few more games next year. Is that a good thing when you're looking at a very good draft in 2025 and a potentially generational number 1 prospect? We've seen the Blazers the last 3 years purposefully lose games at the end of the year. Now, you don't want to go into a season saying, we're going to lose games. That's not good for your young players. It's not good for your culture. Okay? But if you trade Jerami Grant for draft picks, you're not going into next season saying, yeah, we're trying to lose. We're going to lose games. You're not saying that to your young players, but you're setting up that team to do that very thing. If the Blazers get back Jerami Grant, or if the Blazers trade Jerami Grant and get back 2 first-round picks, Rui Hachimura, and then, I don't know, Gabe Vincent, a filler contract, whatever, and then maybe they flip Rui Hachimura, get back a couple seconds or whatever they can get back for him, then you're basically trading Jerami Grant for picks and no other useful players. You clear up minutes for your young players, which ultimately should be good for development. And you're going into the next season saying, we want you guys to play hard. We're going to try and establish an identity offensively. We want you guys to run. We want you guys to improve. It's all like productive, right? It's all productive. And they're going to go into the season with those sorts of messages no matter what. But if you have Jerami Grant on the team and Chauncey is coaching to try and win games, we've seen that when he's played Jerami Grant an insane amount of minutes last year, the season before. Chauncey's going to go into the season trying to win games. And he even had the quote that I referenced earlier about trying to force feed Jerami Grant because he needs Jerami Grant to be super aggressive, essentially, and take shots that he's not comfortable with. He's going to force feed Jerami Grant because his offense is still going to be bad. He's going to force feed Jerami Grant isolation possessions to try and win games. And Jerami Grant can probably come through and win the Blazers a few more games during the course of the season. That's not good. Their long-term goal is to win a championship. They're not going to win a championship next year. Winning games in November, winning games in December is not going to get them closer to that ultimate goal, which is a long-term goal, unfortunately. What does get them closer to that long-term goal? Getting the best possible prospect in next year's draft. What helps them get that best possible prospect? Trading Jerami Grant. Also getting picks back, which can play a part in that future. Jerami Grant doesn't play a part in that future. So at the end of the day, that's a strong point as well for trading Jerami Grant as soon as possible if you're the Blazers. Chat, if you think I missed any points, feel free to let me know in the live chat. Now, do all these points that I've said mean that the Blazers need to trade him right now? Need is a tricky word. I don't think they 100% have to trade him before the season. But I think even if they got back a little bit less than they're asking for from the Lakers, there would be enough positive things that come out of trading Jerami Grant right now that the Blazers should be willing to move off their asking price a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean Joe Cronin shouldn't play this game of trying to extract the most value possible for Jerami Grant. He absolutely should. And if he has a feeling like the Lakers are going to cave before the regular season, then he needs to act on that intuition that hopefully he has, and hopefully it comes true and the Blazers can extract as much possible value for Jerami Grant. So that's a tricky situation that the Blazers are in right now, is there's a lot of good that comes out of trading Jerami Grant, even if you don't get back top dollar for him, but you still want to get back top dollar for him. So how do you play that balancing act? When do you shift your price? That's why there's only 30 NBA GMs in the world. That's why they get paid the big bucks. Okay? Now, the Blazers' mindset might be, oh, we don't care about trading Jerami. Like, we'd trade him if we got a great package, such as 2 first-round picks and Rui Hachimura. But unless we get a great package, we don't really care about trading him. If that's their mindset, they're doing it wrong. And that's more of the directionless stuff that we've talked about in previous seasons. I don't really feel like that's where the Blazers are at. I feel like they are looking ahead at next year's draft. They got Deni Avdija, who can play the 4. He's a twice as good rebounder as Jerami Grant. I think Deni Avdija is actually more of a power forward than Jerami Grant at this point. You got your guy that can replace him. You got your 3 guards. You still have all 3 of them. It's not like you traded Anthony Simons so you could start Scoot and Sharpe and Avdija and Grant. Still got Simons on the team. And I do believe Aaron Fentress's report that the goal for the Blazers is to trade one of Anthony Simons or Jerami Grant. I think the goal is more so right now to trade Jerami Grant because they think they can get back proper value for him. With Anthony Simons, I don't think they can, and I think they know that. Taylor Packer in chat says, I hate the "we're in no rush, he likes it here." If that's truly the thinking, that's a problem. That's a problem. Ultimately, if the Blazers go into the season with Jerami Grant, he needs to be traded at the deadline. He absolutely needs to be traded at the deadline. And people will convince themselves, oh, we can keep him into the offseason. Okay, I guess, but you're probably going to shut him down. It's tough for me to see the Blazers getting better trade packages in the offseason for Jerami Grant than they would at the trade deadline. Also, I would like them to explore some financial flexibility as a part of this rebuild, which, if you can get back expirings at the deadline for Grant, is money that comes off the books next offseason, whereas if you trade Jerami Grant next offseason and a team has to match his salary, they're trading you back contracts that are on the books. You got Deni Avdija, great trade. His contract is amazing. It's freaking amazing. You got a ton of flexibility. You got a ton of your young core on rookie contracts. You bring in Avdija, who's on his second contract, but it's an underpay. Maybe the best contract in the league. that puts you in a position where you could have some financial flexibility to accumulate assets or do things. You just have options with flexibility. And oftentimes you don't even know exactly what those options are going to be. You just know that you have the ability to pivot and maneuver in different directions when trying to build the roster. But when you got anchors in terms of contracts on this team, instead, this offseason we were talking about how do the Blazers duck the tax instead of how can they use their flexibility to put their roster in a position going forward where they can build towards a championship. Now, keeping Brogdon's contract ended up working out. He was used as salary matcher. They didn't really get back anything for him because I don't think the Wizards really valued him like that. They basically used Brogdon to salary match Avdija, but I like Avdija so much, I'm willing to overlook that. I think it was a good trade ultimately. So maybe there's something that could pan out in a way where keeping Jerami Grant does make sense into the next offseason. So maybe it's an overstatement for me to say they need to trade him at the deadline. But part of the Blazers maybe needing to trade Jerami Grant is them needing to increase their flexibility going forward. So they have the ability to explore options, accumulate assets, pivot in different directions. Right? At the end of the day, I don't think it's, something the Blazers need to do in terms of trading Jerami Grant this offseason, but I think it would be, I don't know how to phrase it. They should absolutely, I don't know, man. I don't know how to phrase it correctly because I don't think they need to, but there would be a lot of good that comes from it. End of the day. You clear up a starting spot for Scoot Henderson or Shaedon Sharpe. You'd clear up touches in the offense for Sharpe, Scoot, Ant. Avdija should have the ball in his hands quite a bit. Ayton's going to get his shots. You kind of need to clear up some touches. And of course, sucking next year is kind of a goal. After next year, if the Blazers get a good enough prospect, then you can start talking about building towards actually winning games. If the Blazers get Cooper Flagg miraculously in next year's draft, then we're going into next year saying, I kind of want us to make a play and I want us to make a first round appearance. But the Blazers still need to find their star and they need to clear up the touches and the minutes and the opportunities to either develop that star in Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot Henderson or draft that star next year. Trading Jerami Grant goes into both those things. What's a package you would want back for Grant, Tori? Honestly, at this point, if you got a decent player that you could flip for something like a borderline first or second and then another first on top of that, at the end of the day, I would take that trade. An example of that trade would be Rui and a first from the Lakers, assuming that first is very lightly protected or unprotected. Then I'm at the end of the day, I'm taking that trade. But I'm not taking that trade right now, because I'm hoping that the Blazers can find a way to get back even more, and they're going to be in this cat and mouse game with the Lakers for a while. And I think the Blazers should absolutely play that game. At the end of the day, only Joe Cronin knows what his negotiations with Rob Pelinka are like. So it's up to him to assess and judge that situation correctly. At the end of the day, if it's the day before training camp and the Blazers trade Jerami for a lightly protected or unprotected first plus Rui, I am saying, okay, cool. Not as much as we wanted, but completely fine with it. Ed Halen says, Rui in a first, go back to LA, bro. What does that mean, bro? Chat, at the end of the day, would you take that trade? I'll do a chat poll. Would you trade Jerami? Okay. I need to preface this at the end of the day, because right now you don't do this trade. But let's just say the day before training camp, would you trade Grant for Rui and a lightly protected Lakers first. Yes, on the fence. On the fence basically means like you're willing to actually take this into the season. Kind of like the Sixers did with James Harden before they traded him to the Clippers, right? Like maybe you can take this into November and then the Lakers struggle and then they'll actually give up the 2 first. So maybe you'd pass on this, but these are your options. Yes, on the fence, or hell no. Conqueror says Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson for Jerami Grant and Matisse, no picks. Why should the Blazers do that? Kamara is better than Dorian Finney-Smith long term. Denny Avdia is better than Cam Johnson long term. So why are we trading Jerami Grant for like $36 million in contracts for guys that are bench players long term? I get the idea. I understand the idea. But to me, it's like you're just shelling out a bunch of money for bench pieces for no reason. Like, you need some upside from the Jerami Grant trade. I don't think Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson provide you with any upside. Ed, garbage trade on whose end? You're a little drunk, my guy. You're a little drunk. And that's okay. It's a Monday night, but that's okay to be drinking here watching this stream on a Monday night. Because Ed in chat says, is this Lakers uprise? Why would we do that for LA? My guy, I just spent 25 minutes explaining all the good that could come from trading Jerami Grant beyond just the assets that the Blazers get back. So that answers your question. Why would we do that? I just answered it the previous 25 minutes. The pick is lightly protected. Now, honestly, I don't know. You could talk me into being on the fence. I'm between yes and on the fence. I can see taking Jerami into the season, hoping the Lakers struggle to start the season and get desperate. You can absolutely convince me of that to get that extra pick. Maybe Rui struggles a little bit, etc. But if the Lakers don't end up shelling out more, then you kind of have to take Jerami to at least the trade deadline. Teams just don't trade before the trade deadline in normal situations. Normally when they start the season, they want to see what they have and they want to see where they're weak, and they first want to try and internally improve on where they're struggling, and then if they can't, then they try and address it at the deadline. One Piece says, hell no is phrased too strongly. Okay, heck no. Alright, pretend it is heck no. Anyway, reading chat. 43% say yes, they would do that trade the day before training camp. 26% say they're on the fence. 31% say hell no. So pretty split. Pretty split. At the end of the day, 2 lightly protected Lakers first and Rui for Grant is an overpayment on the Lakers' end. It is. If we were all Laker fans, we would be saying no to giving up 2 firsts and Rui for Jerami Grant. Now, I think the Lakers need to do something. I think the Lakers need to get Jerami Grant. But if the situations were flipped, we'd be sitting here convincing ourselves that Grant is not that much better than Rui Hachimura. And the people, I feel like a lot of the people that would say hell no to this trade would be the same people that would be convincing themselves that Rui is almost as good as Jerami Grant. Because here's what they'd be looking at. Rui Hachimura last year, 14 points per game, 4 rebounds and assists, shot 54% from the field and 42% from 3. We've been sitting here saying, man, is Jerami Grant even a better shooter than Rui Hachimura? He shot 42% from 3 last year. And he's younger. He's 26. He's still getting better. That's what we'd be saying. Also, Rui is statistically a better rebounder. And per 36, he got 18 points per game. Jerami, per 36, got 22 points per game. So an extra 4 points every 36 minutes. I don't know. Like, that's what we'd be saying if we were Laker fans. Okay? It's always interesting to view these trades from the other side of the fence. Ultimately, I think Jerami's a little better defensively than Rui, but I don't think Jerami is anything special defensively. At least anymore. At least in the way that the Blazers utilize Jerami Grant defensively. He cannot be used to guard guards that run a lot of pick and roll. He can't get through screens. Two first-round picks in Rui is, as One Piece says, absolute max value. I don't think you'd be able to get both picks unprotected. I think both of them would be lightly protected. I think the max value the Blazers could get for Jerami Grant is 2 lightly protected first-round picks of Rui Hachimura from the Lakers. I think if you say hell no to a lightly protected Laker first and Rui for Grant, if you feel that strongly about it, I think you're maybe expecting a little too much. I don't know. I assume everybody would take 2 first-round picks, lightly protected, in Rui for Grant. One Piece, that is exactly the counter-argument that I would use as a Blazer fan. He says, Jerami is at least 1 first-round pick better than Rui. Rui has never shot the 3 that well and shoots only about 3 threes a game. Exactly. I've said that before. You can put more stock in Jerami shooting a really good 3-ball. He shot 40% the past couple of years. Shoots tougher 3-point attempts. More volume. But that's the thing with fans is, you know, they'll always pick the stats that make their guy seem a little bit better. And the truth is normally in the middle if you look at the entire picture. Default username says I'd throw in Rob. The salary gets tricky, but if you can swing the deal by throwing in Rob, you absolutely do it. Because he doesn't have much value right now. Anyway. I'll ask Eric this question on Thursday when he's back. Because I'm curious what his answer would be. So we'll kind of finish up this conversation when Eric is back on Thursday. Now, next topic's going to be interesting. I'm live reacting to an Athletic article. Shout out to them. This is behind a paywall, so I feel like I should give them their due. They have good content that is worth paying for. Okay, so shout out to them. I'm reacting to an under 21 mock draft. Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe are on this mock draft. I don't know who's higher, and we're going to see who's higher. First, of course, is Victor Wembanyama. Second is Paolo Banchero. Third is Alperen Şengün. I do not really agree with Şengün at 3. I know he looked really good last year defensively. He has issues, and the Rockets played some of their best basketball without him. Like, there wasn't the drop-off that me and many other people thought there was going to be when he got hurt to end last season. He's very, very skilled. He's a very good player, but is he good enough offensively to justify what he's going to give up on the defensive end at an important position in order to rank him as the third best player 21 and under going forward? I don't know. At 4 is Brandon Miller. I would put Brandon Miller ahead of Şengün right now. Number 5 is Derek Lively. Number 6 is Gigi Jackson, who went, 45th? If I recall correctly, the Blazers passed on him with 23 and 43. Kind of a rough one there. Number 7 is Jabari Smith. So we're now into what they call round 3. Jabari Smith is at 7 ahead of both Sharpe and Scoot. I don't like him ahead of either Sharpe or Scoot. Jabari Smith just screams like good role player. He just, the off the dribble game is not there at a level where he's ever going to be a star, in my opinion. 8 is Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga's still 21? Kuminga turns 22 October 6th. Yeah, he's played 3 seasons already. Apparently he wants a max. He averaged 16 a game last year. I can understand having him ahead of Scoot and Sharpe. Number 9 is Amen Thompson. Number 10 is Cam Whitmore. So Scoot and Sharpe don't even make the top 10. You can make an argument for Amen over both of them, though. Amen is legit. Okay. Number 11, here's your first Trailblazer. Scoot Henderson. So this is multiple writers at The Athletic that did this mock draft, okay? Scoot Henderson, number 11. The quote says, "It's been wild to see how many people have jumped off the Scoot Henderson bandwagon over the past calendar year. I haven't. I'm still here." In this draft alone, we've already taken 5 players ahead of him from the 2023 NBA draft. I'll buy low on a guy who many scouts were in love with this past summer. As it turns out, playing point guard in the NBA at 19 is pretty difficult. I'm expecting Henderson to show some significant growth in year 2 under Chauncey Billups' tutelage. Fully agree. It's just funny because Blazer fans, I think more Blazer fans would take Shaedon Sharpe over Scoot Henderson. I'll do that as a chat poll as we finish out this article. Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot Henderson. Okay, wait. Long term. Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot Henderson. Which one are you taking, chat? Number 12, Asar Thompson. Number 13, we have our first rookie from this past year's class, Stephon Castle. Number 14 is Josh Giddey. Ain't no way you're picking Josh Giddey over Shaedon Sharpe. What are we doing, man? What are we doing? 15 is Brandon Podziemski. I'd pick Brandon Podziemski 100 times out of 100 over Josh Giddey. Round 6, 16 is Matas Buzelis. Number 17 is Jeremy Sohan. Number 18 is Jalen Duren. Where the hell is Shaedon Sharpe? Number 19 is Cason Wallace. And number 20 is Shaedon Sharpe. The quote says, Sharpe's second season as a pro got off to a promising start, but he only managed to play 32 games before undergoing abdominal surgery in January. Through the first 22 games of last season, Sharpe was averaging 18.8 points while shooting 36.5% on three-pointers on 6.2 attempts. I might be one of maybe 4 people in the world who are excited to see what the Portland backcourt can do next season. I think Scoot and Sharpe have the potential to be an exciting combo. It's crazy when a writer views I think Scoot and Sharpe have the potential to be an exciting combo as something that is optimistic. Are we just drinking the Kool-Aid here in Portland in terms of believing in Shaedon Sharpe? Because this just screams to me like guys that did not watch him last year and just looked at his stats and saw that his stats weren't impressive. I think 20 below Sohan, below Cason Wallace, below Buzelis is blasphemous. blasphemous stuff. Now, I also think there are a lot of Blazer fans that are maybe a little too optimistic when it comes to Shaedon Sharpe. Because right now, looking at this poll, 78% of the people that voted in it said they'd take Shaedon Sharpe over Scoot Henderson long term. I think that should be pretty 50-50. I think like the idea of Sharpe is very interesting and tantalizing. But man, is that how the NBA world views Shaedon Sharpe? That's kind of fascinating. That's interesting. I'm more in line with the people that I think overrate Sharpe a little bit than what The Athletic said. Where they had him at 20. Also, they have Reed Shepherd, 22. They have Zach Edey, 23. 24 is Richeche. Connor says, I think it will be easier for Sharpe to reach the ceiling than Scoot. I just don't understand that argument. I do not understand that argument. Smog says, Smog member for 43 months says, Sharpe is MJ with a 3. I'm not biased at all. You're funny. Why I don't agree with Sharpe it being easier for him to reach his ceiling than Scoot is I already think Scoot has like the passing, which is a big part of his ceiling. And I think the 3-point ball wasn't that far off of what it needs to be second half of the season. I think the stuff he needs to improve on to like actually approach his ceiling is stuff that is very realistically improvable on. The thing is for Sharpe is like he has to find a level of scoring feel and skill that is really hard to reach in order to reach his ceiling. I think people think Sharpe, it's going to be easier for him to reach his ceiling because he's taller and he's athletic, but it's never that simple. Terry says, Tori, you are young when older gentlemen know more about basketball and talent. We have experienced Shay all the way. Brother. If you think age equals basketball knowledge, I can't help you. All right? I can't help you. Taylor says, he said, hey, Youngblood, listen to me. Absolutely, man. I really just got young-blooded. Sometimes this is why I don't respond to chat. Not only that, he spelled my name with an I. Cardinal sin. Never spell my name with an I. Insulting. Anyway, 80% of people going Sharpe. 20% of people going Henderson. I can sit here and say, oh, The Athletic, their writers are paid to know about basketball, and they took Scoot ahead of Sharpe. I mean, what are we talking about? Medina says, I think Scoot has more to improve than Sharpe, and Scoot has higher ceiling potential, so more to reach. I think, like, potential in a guard, you got to be able to make plays for yourself and others. I think Scoot already has the making plays for others part where it needs to be with him being 20 years old. Like, I think he's on pace to be a really special playmaker for others. The question is, can he create his own shot? And that, of course, is going to be a work in progress, but he has some of those pieces. Sharpe improved as a passer, like, more than I expected in his first 2 seasons. But I don't think he has the potential that Scoot does in terms of being able to make plays for others. Michael says Steph better than LeBron. Steph changed the game. Number one, I do not agree with that. Number two, how does that factor into this conversation? Michael Sun says, what is Sharpe shown besides freak athleticism? Sharpe has shown passes of being able to set up teammates, being able to make a pocket pass, being able to run some pick and roll, being able to hit threes off the dribble. Like, he's shown a lot in terms of potential as a lethal scorer, as somebody that can play off the ball. I think if the Blazers were able to run transition more, he'd look impressive. Like, he had some really impressive transition moments, both as a ball handler and a lane filler last year. He's a superior athlete with 3-level scoring potential that should hopefully be able to make the right read more often than not. That's what people see in him when they look at his ceiling. I just think at the end of the day, it's harder to develop the passing feel that Scoot has, in the passing vision that Scoot has. It's a little easier to develop some of the scoring stuff that Scoot needs to work on, finishing at the rim, picking his spots a little better as a scorer, etc. Jump shooting, etc. So, you can make a case for either guy. I think it's pretty 50-50 long-term between the two of them. I think the athletic was ridiculous, having Sharpe that far down. And I do not agree with the split of people taking Sharpe over Scoot being 80-20. But that's just my opinion. We give you guys a voice to voice your opinions as well. That's why we do chat polls. That's why we have the live chat. That's what makes our channel great. Okay? It's not just me and Eric sharing our opinions. You guys always welcome to share your opinions as well. And I will always share my opinions on your opinions. That's part of the fun. Anyway, channel update. Eric should be back on Thursday. We're just going to keep streaming Monday and Thursday. I want to start working towards getting some videos out, some film study stuff that I had like somewhat made at the start of the off season. So stay tuned for that. I'm at least going to start putting out like a video a week at the very least. October is when things get into swing. We'll, of course, do post-game shows for every preseason game once we get there. Right now, working on sponsorship for the channel going into next season. If we have more sponsorship, we can do more stuff for the channel. So if you have any connections that could help us out, if you know anyone that has a business in the Portland area that may have some interest in sponsoring the channel going into next season, feel free to reach out to me or have them reach out to me. If you can help set something up, I'll toss you a referral bonus. Shout out to Colonel Pancake's $10 donation. Says Scoot has less upside than Sharpe, but I think he has the mentality to meet that upside. Sharpe has the tools to be a superstar, but he hasn't shown a lot of wanting to be great. Thank you, Pancakes, for the $10 donation. To end off that conversation, I don't think Sharpe has like not shown that he wants to be great, but it's a little bit easier for me to trust Scoot putting in the work. I don't know if that's fair to Sharpe, though, because he's never shown me that like he's not willing to put in the work. It's just kind of, you know, he has that chill temperament, and I think maybe it's reading a little bit too much into that specifically, which doesn't mean that he doesn't want to be great. I just think like you can always look at somebody big and athletic and convince yourself that they have a ton of upside if they can do anything with the ball. It's the same thing. It's the same mistake people made when Mario Hezonja came into the league. Jan Vesely came into the league. Not that Sharpe is those players. It's just people always love. He has positional size and athleticism and has flashes off the dribble. That always is like enormous upside. But there's a bunch of guys like that where it's just, it never pans out. So you have the conversation of like absolute ceiling and then like realistic upside, like what is more likely to happen. And I think both of those factor in when you're talking about which one you take long term. Before we head out of here, once again, thank you to BetUS for sponsoring this stream. You can get in on NFL action and NBA futures over at their website, which you can sign up for with the link in the description. They're offering you a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. That is a great deal if you want to get in on the NFL, which regular season starts in a couple of weeks. Super excited for that. We'll have a fantasy football draft stream as well on our second channel. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, check that out. But once again, shout out to BetUS. Check them out. Link in the description box below. If you're watching after the stream, it should also be in the pinned comment. Janie says Tori is down bad comparing Sharpe to Hazonia, calling that realistic pure salt. I'm done with the stream because there's some of you that can't listen. That just struggle to listen. Janie, you're one of them. You're one of them. Does Sharpe have positional size? Did Hazonia have positional size? The answer to both is yes. Is Sharpe a good athlete? Yes. Was Hazonia looked at as a good athlete coming into the league? Yes. People take positional size and good athleticism and think it means like superstar upside automatically. That's the point. They were very different in a bunch of other ways. That's all I was talking about. Anyway. It's okay, Tori. I love the streams. I just fundamentally disagree. Okay, but what do you disagree with in terms of both those players having athleticism and positional size? Like, what of that do you disagree with? Because I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think there's middle ground besides Kobe or Hazonia. The point is there's a wide range of outcomes. There's a whole variety of outcomes. And I think that's kind of the point with Shaedon Sharpe is like, he could be a bench scorer. He could be a very good star player. We have no idea what Sharpe's going to be. Okay? We have no idea what he's going to be. I don't think he's guaranteed to become a star. If that makes me a hater, so be it. Okay? That makes me a hater, fine. I don't think he's guaranteed to be a star. Other people, if you're reading that athletic article or listening to people that cover the NBA, there's not some assumption that he's going to be a star out there. Okay, I think the more realistic outcome for Scoot and Sharpe is that Scoot is a little bit better. I think Sharpe ultimately has more upside because of that positional size and because of that athleticism. I just feel like people get too caught up in the positional size and the athleticism in terms of like thinking that a player is going to be something. Because there's examples of guys that made it work, but there's a ton of examples of guys with positional size and athleticism that could do something off the dribble that never amounted to anything. And that was the point, bringing up Hazonia as like the worst case scenario in terms of a guy that was a complete bust because, yes, he had positional size and athleticism and could do a little bit with the basketball, but he had no feel for the game. He couldn't shoot. Like, people thought he'd be able to shoot the basketball coming into the league. Shot wasn't good enough, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. And that's entirely my point in terms of bringing up a worst case scenario like that. Just like people bring up the best case scenario, like, look at MJ, look at Kobe. Why can't Sharpe be that guy? Because he's just as athletic and has 3-level scoring potential too. You know what I mean? Pretty wide range. Trevin says Scoot has a better chance to reach the ceiling than Sharpe does, but Sharpe has a better chance to reach Scoot's ceiling than Scoot does. That just makes no sense. Alex, no, you are not hidden. Trevin says you're not supposed to read that out loud. I'm reading chat today. I don't have Eric with me. I warned you of that early in the stream. Umar says, I don't care who reaches their ceiling. I just need one of them to hit. I agree. If one of them can come close to their ceiling, that's probably a good thing. Anyway. I'll take a couple questions, and then I'll end it. Umar says, how's your day? Tori, I am sunburnt, bro, and I'm feeling it. I need some aloe vera. Taylor says, what do you think Avdia's upside is? I really haven't watched much of him. He's like... I'm like trying to think of a comparison. Right now, he's kind of like a poor man's Franz Wagner. But he shot a lot better last year. I think his ceiling is fringe star, like... top 40 player. It's just tough to say because he improved so much last season. So you have on one hand, like... glass half empty, how much of that was like maybe fluky overachieving and like he's not a 37% three-point shooter and just shot the ball well last year. The glass half full thinking is he improved a ton. If he keeps improving like that, where is his ceiling? He might be a star. So as I've said with a lot of things, the truth is likely somewhere in the middle. Most likely scenario is like he's a third to fourth best player on a championship winning team. I think his ceiling might be being the second best player. Like Chris Middleton. Like absolute ceiling, he could turn into a player that has the impact like Chris Middleton. Because what could Chris Middleton do? He could knock down threes, 3-level scoring, could handle and pass the ball at a small forward position, and play terrific defense. I think if you're talking about absolute ceiling, there's no reason why Avdia's ceiling is below a Chris Middleton, in my opinion. Adzi Max says, who would you compare the best version of Denny with? That's kind of where I'd go with it. Although Chris Middleton is more methodical, Avdia's quicker. Like, they're not the same player, but they have some of the same strengths. Denny is Batum-like. I don't agree. I think Batum's biggest thing was like he was not super aggressive attacking the rim and not physical. And Avdia is both those things. And I think that gives him a different edge that Batum just didn't have. And I loved Batum. Like, Batum, really good player. They have a lot of the same strengths. I think Denny can be better long-term because he has more of an edge to him. So maybe I don't disagree with him being Batum-like. I just think there's just a difference, and you can see it when you watch him. And that was the thing that drove people crazy about Batum, was just lack of aggressiveness. Anyway, that's going to wrap up our stream. Thank you guys for hanging out. Eric will be back on Thursday. It was a fun stream. It's always difficult to find things to talk about in August, but we will always find a way. Appreciate all the channel members. Appreciate the mods. Looking forward to pumping out some video content here in August. But I'm starting to get that itch for more Blazer basketball. Around this time of August, that always gets a little tough. Especially when we don't have a Dame trade saga to talk about. Now it's just Jerami Grant. Maybe something can happen there in the coming month. We'll go live if it does as soon as possible. Thankfully, it didn't happen this past weekend when I was away. But yeah. We'll be back on Thursday. Appreciate you guys. I'm out of here. Shout out to BetUS. Check them out. Link in description. And until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.